Welcome,
Okay.
welcome. This is Dr. Paul Dyer. This is Bridges Live. You can catch Bridges Live every Monday here on iHeart and iTunes Radio, and you can also catch my podcast that you can pick up on Dr. Paul Holistic Sciences, and you can also catch the YouTube channel. It will also pop up there. You can also definitely hit the like button if you like it, and thank you for all your questions and comments that I do get throughout the week on drpaulholisticscience.com. And of course, you can always reach me at drpaulwdyer@gmail.com. But of course, if it's Bridges Live, I have guests, and my guest is I reach out to people to say, hey, audience, people, our global community need education, need information so they can pull themselves into action. That's why the show's called Bridges Live. And I have Miss Sherry Smith on the line. Welcome, Miss Sherry. Welcome to Bridges Live.
Thank you, Dr. Dyer, for having me in this evening.
Absolutely. So, as most people who listen to Bridges Live, I don't like introducing people because I think it's like a baseball lineup, and I know this is like my corniest joke ever, but it's true. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then people understand why we're going to get right into the labor issues, and then being a woman, and then education. But let's give us a little bit of backdrop on you, Miss Sherry.
Okay, certainly. So I currently work for the U.S. Department of Labor out here in the Bay Area, and with my background, I have an MBA in finance and an MSN in management, but those are attributes that I would not like to expound on. I'm looking to move further in my background in the education sector and working with our communities that are less fortunate, certainly our communities of color. And
you can say it. You can say it, Miss Sherry. Black communities, they're broke.
They are broke, but there are things that we can do.
Yes.
If we can pull ourselves together, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes, and put some mentoring programs in place, some volunteers in place, the same money that we spend on some other things, if we can do that and create some opportunities within our own communities, we can do this.
Yes. Now, I was talking to a good friend of mine that I had on my show, Dr. George Frazier. I don't know if you ever had the pleasure of reading some of his books about... Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was on my radio show, and he was talking about our economics and where blacks, by the time we get out of the hole we're in, it'll be 2053.
That's true. And while we can certainly validate that with a lot of scientific data and other studies, other programs in place, we can regain some of that ground if there are some things that we together ourselves. If we would work with some of these corporations that have money, Bill Gates, for example, there's books, there's a number of things we can do. And mentoring and apprenticeships are the things that we need to focus on. Math and science are our weak points here, particularly in the communities of color. And we don't begin to catch up until perhaps middle school, and we've lost so much ground, and sometimes that ground is always not recoverable.
So in radio, and maybe people can get the sense that you are a black woman, but let's just say it, you're a black woman. You're a black woman in the Labor Department. Now, I call it a unicorn. Now, most people are kind of wondering why. So would you like to tell people why a black woman in the Labor Department is a unicorn?
Yes, I'd love to. We typically don't hire in those arenas. That's my answer.
Are you running for office soon? Are you going to go back to Detroit and run for office? Is that what you're doing?
That has crossed my mind.
The
best thing that we can do for our communities, we have to have somebody that looks like us in positions to show us that we can do anything that we want to, but we have to be in those positions to be able to pull folks up by their bootstraps.
Yes. So with the Labor Department, I want to ask some about some numbers, because sometimes we have a person here at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. He is saying different numbers that actually. What are the factual numbers for African Americans, or just in across? I guess you can only speak on the Labor Department in California, but what are those numbers looking like as far as employment status or employable status, I should say?
Well, first of all, in the Bay Area, we're at a 1 or 2% ratio in comparison to the other folks in the community. So the hires that look like that, if you look at your tech companies, not even just the Department of Labor, is 1%. There might be one person of color out of 5,000 or 6,000 hires. So,
wow.
Yeah, there's been plenty of articles. I mean, just even if you read it on LinkedIn and I mean social media, there's plenty of studies about it. We're just not in the workforce like that, and we are the folks that are handing out the grants for employment. We're handing out the grants for youth build programs to build up these communities of color, to provide education, to provide job-seeking skills. But the folks that are there to help those people, most of them don't look like me. There's not even a handful of me, in my own office.
So now, I've read so many different between Black economics and Dr. George Fraser. Should we be building our own tech companies anyway? Kind of like Tyler Perry, he just built this amazing studio it's the rave. Should we just be building our own tech companies and just let it be? Because the only way we're going to help ourselves is to help ourselves.
Thank you for that segue. Yes, we need to be doing that. We need to be building our own tech companies, but let's go back to the basics.
Yes.
We need to be building our own schools, our own communities. Our communities need to have businesses in them with business owners that look like us. If we can go outside of continental USA, I won't call any countries, and put schools there, different people, stars over. Why don't we put some schools here for us?
Hey, you know what? Some people just need to be called out on the carpet. I know people like LeBron James. I know he's done an amazing job in Ohio and the school he's done. And I know there are people. There are so few people, but there are people. Is there enough people? I don't think so. And we have enough spendable income within our culture that we can be building our own schools.
We can do anything that we put our minds to. Let me give you an example really quick.
Yep.
A few years back, Jay-Z, I'm sure Beyonce, they had put something together, and they were sending water over to Africa and looking at building pipelines and things for clean water, correct?
Correct.
How many folks have put a pipeline in Flint, Michigan at all? I ain't heard about that.
Not one.
Not one. And that's what I'm saying. Charity begins at home and spreads abroad. That's in the Bible.
Well, it's funny because it's not funny, but it's sad that we don't listen to our own culture. We don't listen to our own higher power. We don't listen to our God speak to us and call us to say, this is what we can do, this is what we are going to do, and this is how we're going to succeed. Now, let's get back into education, because education is a little bit of a baby for both of us, because that's why I do Bridges Live. And again, thank you for listening to Bridges Live. We're talking to Dr. Paul, and I'm talking to Miss Sherry here, Sherry Smith. And she works for the Labor Department, but her broad is really about education and action. So let's put our education heads together. We were talking about mathematics, and as working, when you got your MBA, now I've seen some of the MBA classes when I was going to school, and how many blacks were in your MBA graduate class?
There were four. That's it.
Look, you guys could fit in a Toyota Supra. So what is it about business? is it because people don't know what MBA stands for, or is people don't understand what do you think it is? Why do you think it scares people away?
There are two things. The first one is most of the folks in the classroom don't look like us. And number two, if it's an MBA, particularly if it's in finance or something, we don't have the basic skills in math or science. If you didn't have the basic skills in math, it's going to be a little difficult for you to do accounting and or finance. There were a few more African Americans in my other master's program, which is the MSM Master's in Management, because there was one or two finance classes, and that was it. Now, the other one was heavily laden with mathematics, but the other one wasn't, and that's where everybody else was.
So we look at STEM, and STEM people, if you don't know, it's science, technology, and mathematics. And the E is, what's the E for? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Engineering. Mm-hmm.
So we know that there's not too many boys, women, people of color in those STEM schools, but yet we don't push our kids to not say, would you like to go? We should just say, you're going.
That's a very good point. We should push our kids to say, you're going, and these are the classes you're going to do. If I'm going to support you in school, yes, I know you like to do marketing. I'll support that too. But as a condition of that, you also need to take X number of business courses. I know kids that have gone to Howard as one example, and they'll do social media classes. They'll do marketing, dancing, and things like that. Okay, so when you come out of school, how many of us are running dance studios? How many of us are the public relation officers for, I won't even say tech companies, any company? Okay, so now you have no mathematical skills, so you have no business degree, so you can't get an accounting job. Now what?
Now what?
And that's what I'm saying. And that takes us right back to the elementary school days where we don't teach our kids the very fundamentals that they're going to need to succeed, so that they get used to doing the math classes. They get used to doing science classes. They're learning the periodical chart and all of those things. I don't like this and I don't like that. So then we steer our kids into where their interest lies, just to, I don't want to say appease them, but to keep them interested enough in school. But it's starting them on a path of unsuccessfulness, so to speak.
So you have a story in your voice. Your story is, how did you get to where you are with all the turmoil that you had to step through shit for?
It's prayer.
There it is.
I have an uncanny ability to network with folks, and unfortunately or fortunately, that meant and means, continues to mean today, spending a lot of time with folks that don't look like me. And then what I do is take what I've learned and what I'm learning and mentor folks in my community that look like me. I'm always helping someone build a resume, giving advice on a business plan, things of that nature, because you have to give back in any forum or arena that you can. I'm not in the escalade of Michelle Obama yet, but that doesn't mean I can't do my part.
Right. And so is there, have you thought about starting your own program for specifically young black kids or young women or young ages from X to Y to say, hey, reach out to me and I can help you?
Both. I'd like to do a program that contains both boys and girls, but certainly have them separate too, because I want the boys specifically stronger in math and science. But I'd like to see the girls get in on the ground floor of coding and some other skills too, not just marketing, not dance. And please, I don't want anybody to think that I don't believe that those things are important. I do believe that those things are important. But I also believe that we need to have skills that are sustainable for our own household, our own communities, and moving forward out into the world.
So I'm going to ask, and I've been talking about this to a couple other people and kicking around the water cooler. Well, for blacks, it's really around the garbage can. Do you think segregation hurt us?
I think segregation hurt us, and I think it continues to hurt us.
You want to explain? You want to expound on that?
Absolutely. Segregation supposedly is separate but equal. We know it was never equal. We didn't have the books that other folks had.
Right.
We didn't even have the buses to get there that other folks had.
Right.
So we'll put that there. And if you look at today, we don't. That's still going on. We still don't have the things that other people have in our communities. And I experienced this growing up until I moved over to the white school. We don't have the books that other people have. And by teaching us the wrong history, and I call the wrong history even black history, where do you see that being taught where we get credit for anything that happened? So we grow up believing that we are second-class citizens. We haven't had any successes. We haven't had any credits of inventing anything or any of those kinds of things. All of those things further hurt us. So we're just looking to fit in, and that's social media, and that's the degree that we'll get because we don't believe that we could be a Katherine Johnson. Before his figures came out, did we know who Katherine Johnson was, the bulk of us? I didn't.
I did. I did.
Very little. When I say I didn't, it's because I didn't know the in-depth story as much as I know today. I knew bits and pieces, but not the whole thing together. And I knew about the John Glenn thing because I'm from Michigan, and he's from there, so yeah.
So here's the thing, and I know my mother passed away in 2015, and my mother has always been a staple of my life. And the thing about growing up with my mom, she was very educated, and her thing was, it's not so much about, she fought for civil rights, and she was a civil rights activist, and my dad was a Black Panther. So with those two people meeting, it was always not just about learning about our culture, it was about learning on all cultures. So those teachings I was very privy to about what the struggle is. The struggle is real, but it's not about struggle, it's about succeeding. And succeeding is like what you did through prayer, through networking, and learning and using it for the betterment of good.
Exactly.
That's success.
It is success. At times it doesn't feel like success. When I look around my office and I still have to eat a lot of crow a whole lot of days, it doesn't feel like success. But then when I also look at the folks that were there before I got there and seeing that they've been in that secretarial pool for 30, 35 years, and I didn't even come into the secretarial pool, I know it's success. And we talk about that in every panel that I set up at work, every round table that I set up, I include them to talk about their experiences, and they're coming along. And do I believe that would have happened had I not been hired? No, I absolutely believe it would not have happened.
And I think that's why I do Bridges Live, and that's really my passion. It's our testimonials, or our testimony is what helps other people to say, hey, I too can do this. I too thought about this. I too did not understand this until I heard Miss Sherry Smith talk about it. I didn't know labor was this. I didn't know MBA was this. I didn't know education and mathematics was this. So there's these things that some people say, of course I knew that. Of course I knew that. And then I understand there's people who don't look like us. And it's tough. It seems like for us to be politically correct, we have to say white people don't think they still sounds like we are complaining when we're not complaining, we're explaining. There's a difference.
There's a huge difference. But you also have to remember with that, people are also, well, let's just be honest here, white people are afraid of losing what they have had all this time. We call it white privilege, but it's always been the forefront that they've always been on. They haven't had to ask the question, how come I didn't get hired? And you know why? Because they were always hired. they were always accepted into the schools. You know, there wasn't only a certain percentage that we're going to get in. You know, we're only letting in 3%, but, you know, Latinos or 3% Asian or just, and the rest was all white. So it never came down to that. And that's been somewhat of a turning tide. But now, with the way that things have been going, let's just say the last 3 years, for sure, you know, I think the end result of what we have is the fear that we're going to lose our footing, so to speak. Well, because the world is quickly becoming a minority. They're not going to be the majority any longer.
So,
but
let me get... Go ahead. Say what you're saying.
I was just saying, we need to use that, and it's not that we shouldn't all work together. Yes, we should all work together, but if we use this turning of the tide to build up our communities, build our schools, teach our own kids, and make this sustainable in this new millennium, this new decade that is coming, so another decade doesn't turn over and we're still in the same sharecropper position, so to speak, that we were hundreds of years ago.
I like that term, sharecropper, and that is a very nasty word as a sharecropper. You're working, but you're never working to get out of anything. You'll always work yourself poor. And that's what a sharecropper did. No matter how much, and you're gonna segue me into my next question, because how many people who have higher level of education are still sharecropping, and why is that?
A vast majority. I won't say 90%, but let's say it's a high percentile that are still doing that, and because they chosen to try to assimilate themselves into getting into that boardroom, getting on that board of directors, and they're continuously working and doing all the right things, playing the right number of games of golf and all of those kinds of things, instead of working with our communities of color. Let's build our own companies. We don't have to do that. There's enough companies. Let's just pick one. Tyler Perry. He ain't running behind somebody playing a game of golf. He's building his own empire as he should. Why ain't the rest of us doing that? And it doesn't even have to be media. Build a shoe store. Build a chain of shoe stores. It's an empire, isn't it? Payless has gone out of business. Why don't we get somebody else that's doing shoe stores to put something together? Be on a board of directors doing that. You start doing things in your own community. There's an old adage, an old saying, build it and they will come. If you're doing well over here running your own companies and doing some other things, they'll come and knock on your door and ask you to be on their board of directors. You know why? Because minorities are becoming the majority and they need some diversity. They're going to have to come over here to get it. They don't have it over there.
When it comes to economics, blacks are very mentally, economically poor. They don't understand economics at all. What are some of those mistakes that blacks miss in business economics? What are some of those things?
We want everything right now, and then therefore we don't understand how we're being charged for, I'll just say, automobile loans. We don't understand how the credit rating system works. I won't say it's helpful, and I won't say it's hurtful, but it hasn't been a success story for us. And until we understand economies of scale and all of those factors, it doesn't give us the footing that we need to build up our own communities. Understanding the trade system and how these things work. And we don't even, most of us I've never heard anyone use the word embargo in one sentence. We have to understand, we have to go back to economics 101 and understanding economies of scale. We have to understand supply and demand, and everything that we see, you don't get it right now, but you work toward that. You build up your inventories. You do, there's a myriad of things.
So we also don't have access to, so we have great ideas. I think blacks are amazing entrepreneurs, but we don't have access to funds. What are some of the ideas that you have as far as what you know? How can you? What do you think people can access that?
Well, we know that the SBA, Small Business Loan Associations, aren't necessarily going to help us, but there are many things that we can do. Why don't we do crowdfunding?
Yeah.
Why don't we get grants? The government has a myriad of grants. Cities and states have those same grants. We don't understand necessarily how grants are written. We have to hire an effective and efficient grant writer and continuously keep things in our pipeline and build up the amount of grants that we're getting so that the business itself is sustainable. So as soon as that one grant is over, now what? We have to be visionaries as well.
When we go back to education, because that's where it has to start, and that's where the beginning is. We know that the states in its ruling are not going to allow us to only have black schools because they outlawed it. And I think they did that on purpose, so we never built a black school. So because if you look at some of these schools now, most of the elementary schools, middle schools are predominantly 99% white women. Teaching 90%, 99% of black boys and girls or children of color. That sounds like that is the puddle we're stepped in.
And as long as we're stuck with that, we will be stuck. One of my ideas around that is simply teach courses for things that are traditional for us. So, machine operating, is that something that I think we should be stuck to? No, I don't particularly care for factories, but that's another show. That's another conversation. But one of the ways around that is to teach courses in fields that are predominantly known for us to do. So that's your machine operator, that's your janitorial, that's your travel service, that's your shuttle driving things. And those are just some examples to get groups of us trained and educated and do it in an apprenticeship way. And that way you're getting federal dollars to do it. There may also be some state and, county dollars, city dollars that you can apply for too. But that's a way of starting a school that has X number of classes and then, of course, expounding on that and adding other courses. We're very well known in food services, so that's yet another set of courses that can be taught.
Sherry, as you know, our people don't come to the things we're offering them. They don't.
That's right.
They don't show up.
They don't show up. So then we need to have an incentive. If we offered an incentive that would be directly linked or related to college courses where they were getting college credit,
okay,
that's one example. If we can help folks get their driver's licenses or driver's licenses back, help them with expungement and different things. There has to be something in it.
I bet you if we were giving away Jordans, they show up.
Oh, they give away, yeah. Well, why don't we give away this? Why don't we give away a pair of Jordans? But you also have to start a shoe store so you can help give away a pair of shoes to a needy person. How about that?
There it is. Because I tell you, if it, back in my day, if it wasn't a Kango or, oh my God, what was the big fur coat? It was the big.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh shoot. I can't. They were big furry ones. Everyone had to have them. They were something skin. I am losing my mind. That's old age.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I know we do need to have incentives, and we definitely, and you know, I've been doing my radio show for a little bit now, and I've talked to some amazing men and women out there who are pulling these kids out of some nasty situations and in some great success stories, and yet our numbers are still so very low and still so very high of incarceration.
Absolutely. And in my mind, that's a way to eradicate us. We have got to get out of that system. It's another form of slavery. I think factory is one of them, but you know, it's keeping us grouped where you want us.
Yeah.
Because then we're not taking jobs or positions outside of wherever you want to bound us at.
Well, it was Lyndon Johnson's New Deal. Welcome to the deal.
That's right. But you know, we also have to get away from thinking that someone is coming to save us. No one is coming. The cavalry is not coming. It's up to us to save us. And some of us aren't going to save us either. So, you know, we have to be in tune to a lot of things.
You know, Dr. George Fraser just recently said that too. He goes, there is no one coming. They haven't saved us for the last 400 years. They're not saving us. We have to save ourselves. And Ms. Sherry, you said the same thing, and we are saying the same thing. So as you listen to Bridges Live with Dr. Paul, we're talking to Ms. Sherry Smith with the Labor Department, but she's more education, is more about economics, and more about, you know, teaching our youth that we can be, like you said, quote, we can do anything we want to do. We just got to do it, and that's the action. Economics, mathematics, these are the staple things we have to learn how to do if we're going to be economically successful and mentally aware. Awareness is something that people aren't used to because they first have to wake up. What's one of those two things people can start doing now to wake up to be economically aware, Sherry?
Reading, that's for sure. Be aware of what's going around you. Mm-hmm. Understand the direction that the economy is moving in, and learn how to be a part of what's going on. You know what I'm saying? If bottled water is, for example, the highest producing product in the economy and it's the biggest portion of the GNP, let's learn how to bottle water. Let's learn how to manufacture those bottles, because you can't have bottled water if you don't have bottles. That's your niche.
In your daily job, in your daily, what's some of the struggles you see Black America struggling with that is an easy fix?
I would have to say reading. Because if we read, we understand what we're signing. We go on to graduate from school. I won't even say college at this point, Dr. Paul. I would say high school. Education is key to everything, because if you can't get a job, eventually you'll find yourself in some other circles. And those other circles, unfortunately, more times than not, land us incarcerated. It may be the same crime, but we're going to do quite a bit more time, if not all of the time, than someone else. So an easy fix certainly would be learning to read and learning job skills. We have to learn the basic skills of what it takes to maintain a job, learning to put together a resume, learning interviewing skills, how to dress for the job, time and attendance, transportation. We have to have all of these things fixed for us. No, it's not going to be given to us, but giving just simple readiness skills to our youth as they're growing up.
So I have webinar classes that I teach people on things in emotional science. And you touched on something, and that's probably another way of starting those schools. But we definitely need to get the youth into the webinar classes or classes that they can contact you on. Would you be willing to be my resources for that information so I can direct line to you from them once I reach out to these youthful people? Because I know you're busy, you're traveling, and you're actually going to be switching office here pretty quick. So would you be interested in doing your own webinar classes?
Absolutely. Where there's a computer or a phone, and for young people, it just needs to be a phone, correct? Dr. Paul?
Yeah, that's right. It's just a computer or a phone, and we can touch lives. So that's exactly what we do. Thank you so much, Miss Sherry. And I know you'll be heading off to your next duty station here pretty quick, but we'll keep you up to breast, and I'd like to have you back on to Bridges Live.
Super. I would love to come back. Thank you.
Thank you. And remember, you can always catch Bridges Live on Dr. Paul Holistic Science on iHeart and iTunes Radio. Bridges Live every Monday. And thank you for all my sponsors and all my listeners. If you have any questions, you know how to contact me. You just click that like button on below when you're listening to it and subscribe to my station, and you can catch all the podcasts. Thank you, and everyone, God bless.